Wyoming Territory, August 1881. The wind carried dust across the dry plains as Willow North held her rifle steady, eyes locked on the man slumped at the base of the cottonwood tree on her land, bloody, unconscious, and wearing the kind of trail-worn coat that meant only one thing: cowboy. She should have left him. Instead, she cursed under her breath, lowered her gun, and knelt beside him. His face was bruised, lips split, and his right arm bent at an angle no man's ought to be. Blood soaked through his shirt near the ribs, and she could already see the swelling at his temple. Whoever did this, they had meant to kill him. Willow set her jaw, muttered, "Damn fool," and began dragging him toward the small homestead she had built with her own hands. She had not survived by being soft. After her husband ran off and left her with 2 children, and nothing but a title to land no one wanted, she had learned to keep her heart locked up. She ran cattle, hunted game, and kept the world back with a loaded rifle and a sharp mind. But now here she was, hauling a stranger into her home like she did not know better. Inside, her daughter Lainey, 9 years old and too clever by half, watched wide-eyed as Willow laid the man across the spare bed. "Who is he?" Lainey whispered. "I do not know," Willow said, reaching for the bandages. "And we are not keeping him." Lainey glanced at her younger brother, Levy, who was 5 and already gripping his toy horse like it might protect him. Willow cleaned the man's wounds in silence. She stitched where she could, wrapped the rest, and left him unconscious as the sun fell behind the hills. He woke by lantern light. His voice was rough. "Where am I?" Willow stood over him, arms crossed. "My land. You were bleeding out under a cottonwood." "Name's Zeke Jameson," he rasped. "I owe you." "You do not owe me anything. You will be gone by morning." His dark eyes blinked slowly. "Can't ride with this arm. Then you can walk." He grinned through the pain. "You always this kind to strangers?" Willow's voice turned cold. "Only the half-dead ones." Zeke stayed 3 days. On the 4th, he helped Levy stack firewood one-handed. On the 5th, he taught Lainey how to whistle through her fingers. By the 6th, he had fixed the barn gate with nails he found in her shed. He never asked for more than a plate of beans and a place to sleep. He never pried. Willow hated how much that meant. He was trouble. She knew it. Cowboys did not wake up bloodied and broken on your land unless they had enemies, but Zeke had a quiet strength in him. He spoke soft with the children, respectful with her. He never tried to charm her, never leaned too close. That made it worse. One night after the children were asleep, she found him out by the corral watching the moon rise. "You need to leave," she said. Zeke nodded. "I know." Willow looked down at her hands. "You are a mistake." He turned to her, and for the first time there was something raw in his voice. "Then let's make that mistake every morning." She stared at him, heart hammering. "I can't," she whispered. "I already made one mistake. Their father, he left us with nothing. I can't let them get close to someone who might vanish the next time a gunfight finds him." Zeke's jaw tightened. "I ain't him. You are a cowboy." He stepped forward, slow and steady. "I was. Rode for a cattle outfit down near Cheyenne, got caught in the middle of a land dispute. I did not start the fight, but I ended it, and one of their men did not get back up. His brothers came looking for revenge. They will come here. I will make sure they do not." Willow crossed her arms. "You say that like I have not heard it before." Zeke looked at the house behind her, the soft glow behind the curtains. "You built something here, you fought for it. I see that. I ain't asking to take anything from you, Willow. I am asking to stand beside you." Something in her chest cracked open. She hated how much she wanted to believe him. The next morning, before the sun cleared the ridge, gunshots cracked through the air. Willow burst from the house, rifle in hand. Zeke was already there, crouched behind the barn, returning fire. 2 men on horseback circled the corral, rifles raised. One wore a red scarf, the other a black hat. Zeke shouted, "Willow, go back inside." She ignored him. "I have a shot." "Not unless you want to hit the horse," she fired. The man in the black hat dropped, the other turned and bolted. Zeke stood slowly, breathing hard. "That was good shooting." Willow lowered her rifle. "Told you I know how to fight for what is mine." Zeke looked at her, something new in his eyes. "Then maybe I am not a mistake after all." She could not stop the way her lips curved, just a little. Zeke stayed. He fixed the roof, shod the horses, and taught Levy how to tie knots. He never tried to replace what they had lost, he just showed up every morning like he meant it. One night, as the fire crackled low, Willow sat beside him on the porch. "I meant what I said," she murmured. He leaned closer. "So did I." She turned to him. "This thing between us, it scares me." Zeke reached for her hand, gentle and sure. "Then let it scare us, but let it be real." And when he kissed her, it was not rushed. It was quiet, steady, like the kind of promise a man makes with his whole heart. She did not stop him. She did not want to. The first frost came early that year. Willow woke to a thin crust of ice edging the water bucket and the breath of the horses hanging like smoke in the cold dawn. She rose before the children, boots already laced, and stepped outside into the brittle quiet. Zeke was at the fence post, sleeves rolled, working a length of wire taut against the morning chill. He looked up once, nodded, then kept on with the task. She didn't speak until she reached the fence beside him. "That line's been loose since spring." He gave a short sound that might have been agreement. "Figured I'd see to it before the snow makes it worse." Willow gripped the post, feeling the sting of the cold wood. "You planning to wait out winter here?" Zeke didn't answer right away. He twisted the wire around the nail head, then stood, brushing his hands clean on his trousers. "I ain't got a place else worth going," he said. "Not unless you're ready to send me on." She didn't look at him. "I didn't say that." "No, but you've been quiet since the shooting." Willow finally met his eyes. "Men died, Zeke." "I know what that costs," he said, voice low. "But I didn't bring it to your door. They followed me, sure, but I didn't give him your name." "Didn't bring them here on purpose." She studied him, the way his jaw stayed still, like he was holding something heavier than his words. "You ever kill a man before that?" His gaze didn't flinch. "Yes." She nodded once. "Then don't lie and say it doesn't put something in you." "I'm not lying." "Good. 'Cause I can't have my children grow up around lies." Zeke leaned his weight against the fence. "What do you want from me, Willow?" She glanced toward the house. "I don't know yet." That night, Laney asked him to read from a tattered book she'd kept since her father left. Zeke squinted at the worn pages, his voice rough but steady. Levy curled up near the fire, half asleep. Willow sat by the window, sewing needle in hand, listening. When the story ended, Laney looked up at him. "Did your mama read to you when you were little?" Zeke's mouth twisted faintly. "Didn't know her long enough." "Oh," he ruffled her hair gently. "But I reckon she'd like that I'm doing it now." Later, when the children were asleep and the coals burned low, Willow leaned against the doorframe. "You never said you were orphaned." Zeke didn't turn from the fire. "Didn't think it mattered." "It might." He looked over his shoulder. "Why?" "Because it means you know what it is to be left." He stood slowly. "I do, that's why I won't do it to them." Willow's chest tightened. "Or to me." He crossed the room and stopped a breath away. "You said I was a mistake." She didn't move. "I did." Zeke nodded. "Then let's make that mistake every morning. Let's build something out of it." Willow's voice caught. "I haven't been a woman in years. I've just been surviving." He touched her hand, calloused fingers brushing across her knuckles. "Let me help you live again." They stood like that, the fire casting long shadows around them. No more words came. They didn't need to. In the weeks that followed, the rhythm of their days shifted, not all at once, quietly. Zeke began teaching Laney how to track animal prints in the mud after rain. He showed Levy how to carve small things from soft pine buttons, a whistle, the handle of a spoon. Willow caught herself watching him when he didn't notice. The way he laughed with Levy when the boy dropped his whistle in the trough. How he lifted Laney onto the horse like he'd done it 1,000 times. One evening, after supper, she found him oiling the hinges of the pantry door. "You fixing everything just to stay busy?" she asked. Zeke shrugged. "Makes me feel like I belong." "You do." He looked up, surprised. She stepped closer. "You do, Zeke." He held her gaze, then reached for her hand again. This time she didn't let go. They stood together as the wind picked up outside, rattling the shutters. But inside it was warm, solid. The kind of warm that didn't leave. The cellar wall had shifted sometime during the thaw, and Willow noticed it first when the jars of peaches leaned just slightly on the shelf, like they were trying to slide downhill. She crouched beside the stonework, pressing her fingers to the line where the mortar had cracked. "I can shore it up," Zeke said from behind her, his voice steady but quiet. "Use some timber braces. Won't hold forever, but it'll give you a few more winters." She didn't answer right away. The earth was always moving out here, wind cutting the hills, rivers shifting course, frost breaking up what spring tried to mend. Nothing stayed how it was built. Not even stone. Finally, she rose, brushing dust from her hands. "We'll do it before frost comes back." "I've got fir boards behind the shed." Zeke nodded once. "I'll need to dig down the outer edge, get to the seam from both sides." Willow turned to face him. "Then I'll dig with you." They worked side by side most of that day, the sun low and golden, the soil dry and stubborn. Laney brought them bread and coffee at midday, and Levy sat on the fence, his legs swinging as he watched. No one said much, just the scrape of shovels and the rhythm of shared labor. Later, as the sky turned the color of ash, Zeke leaned on his spade and looked toward the distant ridgeline. "You ever think about leaving?" he asked. Willow wiped her wrist across her brow. "I did, once, after he left. Thought maybe I'd take the children east, find work in a town where people didn't know my name." Zeke didn't look at her. "What stopped you?" "This land," she said simply. "It was the only thing that didn't lie to me. It's hard, it's cold, but it's honest." Zeke nodded slowly, his gaze still fixed on the horizon. "My pa tried to homestead in Nebraska, failed 3 times, lost 2 sons to fever and the last to a runaway wagon. He gave up before I was old enough to hold a plow." Willow studied him. "And your ma?" "She didn't make it through the 3rd winter." The silence settled between them again, not heavy, just sure. "I didn't know what it meant to belong anywhere," he said after a while. "Not until I helped Levy mend that chicken wire. He told me I was doing it wrong." Willow let out a quiet breath. "He tells everyone that." Zeke's mouth twitched. "Still felt like he cared if I got it right." They stood there a while longer, the wind picking up dry grass and tumbling it across the yard. Willow watched it dance along the edge of the barn. "I've been thinking," she said. "About winter." Zeke raised an eyebrow. "About what it would mean if you stayed through it." He didn't move, just waited. She kept her arms crossed. "I could use another set of hands when the snow gets deep. The cattle need watching. The roof leaks near the stovepipe, and Laney's outgrown her boots." Zeke tilted his head. "Is that your way of asking?" "I don't ask," she said. "I offer." He stepped closer, not touching her, not yet. "Then I accept." They didn't speak of it again that night. Instead, they sat with the children and played dominoes by lantern light, the pieces clacking softly against the table. Laney kept score with a bit of charcoal on a torn scrap of ledger paper. Levy curled up on Zeke's knee before the game was through. Later, after the children were in bed, Willow found herself in the kitchen, slicing apples for drying. Zeke came in without a word, picked up the peeler and began to help. The quiet stretched between them again, but this time it felt full. "You trust me yet?" he asked, voice low. Willow didn't look up. I trust you with a dull knife and my children. That's a start. She set the blade down and met his eye. You're not what I expected. I'm not trying to be. She stepped closer, her hands still sticky with juice. Then don't change, not for me. Not for anyone. He reached for her, careful and sure. His fingers brushed her cheek, rough from work, warm from the stove. I want a life, he said. Not just a place to sleep, not just somewhere to hide. Willow nodded. Then build it here. When she kissed him, it was slow, deliberate, like planting something in soil you've tilled with your own hands, something you mean to keep alive. Outside, the wind slipped under the door, but the warmth between them held. By late October, the snow had come down in slow, steady layers, not enough to trap them, but enough to hush the land. The world outside turned pale and brittle, and the sky hung low and gray, as if pressing its weight on the shoulders of the hills. Inside the house, heat from the stove seeped into the walls, and the scent of dried sage and cured meat clung to the air. Zeke had begun carving new handles for the kitchen drawers, his pocket knife working patient strokes into the grain. He did it in the evenings, seated near the hearth while Levy sorted nails into empty tobacco tins and Laney stitched patches into old flour sacks to make doll clothes. Willow watched from the table, her needle paused mid-stitch, a quiet part of her startled by how easily this had become their rhythm. She waited until the children were upstairs, Laney reading aloud to her brother in the loft, their voices drifting soft through the floorboards. You never said what you were looking for when you left Cheyenne, she said, without lifting her eyes from the linen in her lap. Zeke didn't stop carving. Didn't know what I was looking for, but you left something behind. Not much worth keeping, he said. A bunkhouse full of men who couldn't tell a lie from a memory, a boss who'd trade his own brother for a few more head of cattle, and a bed that never stayed warm. Willow folded her cloth slowly, her fingers pressing a crease. You never wanted to start something of your own. A string of stock, maybe, land. I wanted it, he said, didn't believe I deserved it. She looked at him then, eyes narrowed. Why? He met her gaze, the knife still in his hand. Because everything I ever touched I lost. My family. My name, in a way. I got used to drifting. You could have kept drifting, she said. I almost did. She rose, crossed the room, and sat beside him on the bench, close enough that their knees brushed. The fire cast flickers of light across the wooden floor. You still feel like you don't deserve this? She asked. Zeke set the knife down gently. I don't know what I did to earn it. You don't earn a place, she said. You make one, every day, same as anything else worth keeping. He rubbed his thumb across the carved handle, then turned to her. I think about the morning I woke up in your house. Thought I was done for, didn't know your name, didn't know if you'd let me stay long enough to breathe. And now, she asked, I think if I lost this roof, this fire, your voice at sundown, it'd be the end of me. Willow didn't flinch. Then don't lose it. Zeke's hand found hers, careful, not claiming, just holding. She let him. Her skin was cold from the table, his warm from the fire. Outside, a branch cracked under the weight of snow and an owl hooted once, low and distant. The next morning, Zeke saddled the buckskin mare and rode out before sunrise. He didn't say where he was going, only that he'd be back by dusk. Willow watched him disappear over the ridge, her scarf pulled tight against her neck, her breath clouding the air. He returned near dark, coat dusted in frost, a canvas sack tied behind his saddle. When he came through the door, Laney ran to greet him, and Levy clung to his leg. Willow waited until the children were busy with the sack, which held a bolt of calico and a jar of boiled sweets, before she stepped close. You rode all the way to the settlement. Zeke nodded and pulled a folded paper from his coat. She took it, smoothing it open. It was a deed application, half filled, the signature line still blank. He watched her read. There's a patch of land east of here. Creek runs through it. No one's claimed it. Figured I could put in for it in spring. Willow's voice was quiet. That's 2 days' ride from here. It is, he said. But I don't want to live 2 days away. Not unless you tell me to. She folded the paper carefully, her hands steady. You planning to wait for my answer? Zeke tilted his head. No. I'm planning to keep showing you why I'm worth saying yes to. She stepped even closer, their boots nearly touching. You're not a visitor anymore, she said. This isn't something I'm lending you. I know that. Then stop asking for permission. Zeke leaned in, his brow nearly touching hers. I wasn't asking, I was offering. And when she kissed him again, it wasn't cautious or slow. It was sure. It was the kind of kiss that knew where it belonged. Later that night, after the candles had burned low and the house had gone quiet, Willow sat at the table, the deed folded neatly beside her. She picked up her pen, dipped it in ink, and signed her name beside his. Not below it. Beside it. The wind howled outside, but the fire still burned. The house stood steady. And in the quiet, they made a place that would hold. The snow deepened through November, muting the world beyond the cottonwoods and pinning down the last of the leaves. Willow's days narrowed to wood smoke and wool, hands chapped from washing, voice hoarse from calling children in before dark. Zeke never said a word about the cold, though she caught him once rubbing his shoulder where the break had healed stiff. He moved slower on bad mornings, but he never missed chores. She noticed other things too. How he started keeping his boots by the door without asking. How the children had begun to turn to him without thinking, Laney to show him the sums she'd practiced, Levy to ask if his trout drawing looked real. And how, in the quiet corners of evening, Zeke had started looking at her not with question or hope, but with something steadier. A man building his life brick by brick. One night, after the children had fallen asleep near the stove, Willow pushed the quilt tighter around them and turned to find Zeke at the table, bent over a square of paper with pencil in hand. She stepped closer, wiping her hands on her apron. "What are you drawing?" "Layout for a lean-to," he said. "Thinking I could tack it onto the barn's south side. Would give us a dry spot to store kindling, maybe keep the tack from freezing up." She pulled out a chair and sat beside him. "You already fixed the barn roof, cleared the loft, patched the chicken wire. You planning to rebuild the whole place?" Zeke tapped the edge of the paper. "Not rebuilding, just settling in." She watched the way his hand moved across the page, slow and sure. "You've changed." He looked up at her. "How so?" "You used to keep one boot pointed toward the door." Zeke leaned back in the chair, folding his arms. "That was before I figured out what it meant to stay." Willow studied him a long moment. "You're not waiting for the thaw to leave, are you?" "No," he said. "I'm waiting for spring to plant." She didn't expect the swell of feeling that rose in her chest, sharp and warm all at once. "What would you plant?" "Corn, maybe. Some beans. And I'd ask Levy what he wants. He's got strong opinions. I'm sure he'd say peppermint." Zeke smiled, just enough to soften his face. "Then we'll grow some. Even if it doesn't take." She reached across the table, pressed her palm over his. "You're not just part of this place anymore, Zeke. You're part of us." That night she didn't go back to her own bed. She slipped quietly into his arms beneath her blanket, her breath tucked beneath his chin. No words passed between them, only the sound of the wind outside and the steady beat of his heart. Weeks passed. The days lengthened by degrees. Zeke built the lean-to, and Willow let him. He didn't ask where the nails were kept anymore. He knew. Laney began calling him Pa when she thought no one was listening, and Willow didn't correct her. Levy took to following him around the yard, mimicking his gait with a length of rope tied to his waist like a holster. One morning, as the sun broke clean over the hills, Willow stepped outside and found Zeke hammering a post into the frozen ground near the creek's bend. She walked down to him, boots crunching in the frost. "You marking something?" he nodded. "Corner of the new fence line. I filed the deed. Got it back stamped." She took the paper he handed her, the corner creased where he'd folded it too many times. It bore his full name, the tract size, and a seal from the land office in Rawlins. "You didn't tell me you'd gone back. I wanted to bring it home before I said anything." She looked up at him, eyes narrowed against the morning light. "You mean to build there?" "I mean to build here," he said, motioning toward the slope just east of the barn. "Closer than 2 rifle shots. I figured we'd need more space come spring." Willow's breath caught. "More space." He took her hand, his glove rough against her palm. "I want to marry you, Willow, not for the land, not even for the children, for us." She didn't hesitate. "You'll take our name if you ask me to. You'll raise them like they were your own. I already do." She stepped into him, her cheek against his coat. "Then yes." They married in the parlor beside the hearth, Laney holding a bouquet of dried wildflowers, Levy clutching Zeke's old bandana in both hands. The preacher from Sweetwater Station read the words slow and clear, and when it was done, Willow kissed Zeke like she had meant to since the first snow fell. Spring came late that year, but when it did, the land stirred awake beneath their feet. Zeke planted corn and peppermint and 2 rows of beans. Willow taught Laney to churn butter, and Levy caught his first trout with a bent pin and a thread of string. The lean-to held. The barn roof didn't leak once. In late April, Willow hung a new sign above the barn door. It read, "North Jameson." That night they sat on the porch, the children asleep behind the shutters, the scent of damp earth in the air. Zeke leaned back, one arm behind her. "You still think I was a mistake?" She rested her head on his shoulder. "No. You were a storm I didn't expect, but I'm glad you came." He kissed her temple, slow and steady. They watched the stars rise hand in hand. As the wind carried the scent of early blossoms across the land they'd made their own. And for the first time in a long while, everything felt quiet and safe and whole.